Hare Kṛṣṇa. Could you get those curtains for me? Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Ashtottara Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Ashtottara Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga. All right. Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta Prayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 10th day of February 2025 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in Canto 8, Withdrawal of the Cosmic Creations, Chapter 3, Gajendra's Prayers of Surrender, Text 8, Chapter 3, Text 8 and 9. So we'll read text 8 together. Na vidyate yasya cha janma karma va na namarupe gunadosha eva va tatapi lokapyaya sambhavaya yaha swamayaya tani anukalam richati navindite yasya cha janma karma va. Oh, what happened? Oh, they put 9 on. Okay. Tasmai namaha pareshaya brahmane ananta shakteye arupayoru rupaya nama ascharya karmane tasmai namak pareshaya brahmane nanta shakteye arupayoru rupaya nama ascharya karmane tasmai namak pareshaya brahmane nanta shakteye arupayoru rupaya nama ascharya karmane tasmai namak pareshaya brahmane nanta shakteye arupayoru rupaya nama ascharya karmane tasmai namak pareshaya brahmane nanta shakteye nama ascharya karmane tasmai namak pareshaya brahmane nanta shakteye rupayoru rupaya nama ascharya karmane. Someone else? Tasmai namak pareshaya brahmane nanta shakteye arupayoru rupaya nama ascharya karmane. Govardhan. Tasmai namak pareshaya brahmane nanta shakteye arupayoru rupaya nama ascharya karmane. Matthias. Tasmai namak pareshaya brahmane nanta shakteye arupayoru rupaya nama ascharya karmane. Abhirav. Tasmai namak pareshaya brahmane nanta shakteye arupayoru rupaya nama ascharya karmane. Daniel. Tasmai namak pareshaya brahmane nanta shakteye arupayoru rupaya nama ascharya karmane. Naims. Tasmai namak pareshaya brahmane nanta shakteye arupayoru rupaya nama ascharya karmane. Vijay, Krishna.
Dravida Prabhu, I do want to recite the verse, but the Zoom is not showing on the screen.
What's not showing on the screen?
The verse is not being put on the screen for me to read.
Oh, Tapas is in Bangladesh, believe it or not. So I guess he couldn't get online and fix it. I'm really sorry about that, Prabhu. Can't do anything.
No problem.
Okay.
But okay. I'm here for the hearing of your class. Don't worry.
Okay, I'm not worried. Thank you. All right, word by words of this second verse. Let me find it out here. Tasmai, unto him. Namaha, I offer my obeisances. Para, transcendental. Ishaya, who is the supreme controller. Brahmane, who is the supreme Brahman. Para Brahman. Ananta Shaktaye, with unlimited potency. Arupaya, possessing no material form. Ururupaya, possessing various forms as incarnations. Namaha, I offer my obeisances. Ascharya Karmane, whose activities are wonderful. So, translation of both verses. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has no material birth, activities, name, form, qualities, or faults. To fulfill the purpose for which this material world is created and destroyed, he comes in the form of a human being like Lord Rāma or Lord Kṛṣṇa by his original internal potency. He has immense potency, and in various forms, all free from material contamination, he acts wonderfully. He is therefore the Supreme Brahman. I offer my respects to him. Purport. In the Vishnu Purana it is said, Gunangs chadoshangs chamune vyatita samasta kalyana gunatmakohi. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has no material form, qualities, or faults. He is spiritual and is the only reservoir of all spiritual qualities. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita 4.8 by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Parithanaya sadhunam vinashaya chaduskritam. The Lord's activities of saving the devotees and annihilating the demons are transcendental. Anyone annihilated by the Supreme Personality of Godhead gets the same result as a devotee who is protected by the Lord. Both of them are transcendentally promoted. The only difference is that a devotee goes directly to the spiritual planets and becomes an associate of the Supreme Lord, whereas demons are promoted to Brahmaloka, the impersonal effulgence of the Lord. Both of them, however, are transcendentally promoted. The Lord's killing or annihilating of the demons is not exactly like the killing of this material world. Meaning, I think, when someone kills someone else in the material world. I don't think it means killing the material world. Although he appears to act within the modes of material nature, he is nirguna, above the modes of nature. His name is not material. Otherwise, how could one get liberation excuse me, by chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Rāma? The names of the Lord, like Rāma and Kṛṣṇa, are non-different from the person Rāma and Kṛṣṇa. Thus, by chanting the Hare Kṛṣṇa mantra, one constantly associates with Rāma and Kṛṣṇa, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore becomes liberated. A practical example is a Jamil, who always remained transcendental to his activities simply by chanting the name Narayan. If this was true of a Jamil, what is to be said of the Supreme Lord? When the Lord comes to this material world, he does not become a product of matter. This is confirmed throughout the Bhagavad Gita. Janma karma chame divyam abhajananti mamudha manushim tanamashritam. Therefore, when the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Rāma or Kṛṣṇa, descends to act transcendentally for our benefit, we should not consider him an ordinary human being. When the Lord comes, he does so on the basis of his spiritual potency, sambhavamyatma mayaya. Because he is not forced to come by the material energy, he is always transcendental. One should not consider the Supreme Lord an ordinary human being. Material names and forms are contaminated, but spiritual name and spiritual form are transcendental. Om jnana timirandasya jnanandana shalakaya chakshurun militam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So I think I mentioned last time I gave class about a seminar that I gave with Ramapad Swami in Chicago. I used to go there every Christmas or so, and he would pick the topic, and then we'd do some slideshows, and it was very nice. And this, but the topic was Vandanam. Now, those who know the 9 processes of devotional service know that one of them is Vandanam. But Vandanam has several meanings. It means bowing down, for sure, but it also means offering prayers. And so I analyzed some prayers, Kunti's prayers and some others, I think Gajendra's prayers. And I found that there were these 3 basic principles in the prayers as we find them in the Srimad Bhagavatam. The first is the offering obeisances. You'll often find that at the very beginning of the prayer, in the first verse of the prayers, as we do with Kunti Devi. And it turns out the first word of her prayers is Namasye, offer obeisance, and the last word of all the prayers is Namaha. So she ends with that word, obeisances. So that's one aspect of it, of the Vandanam. And then another one is the glorification. Glorification in various ways. As we find here with Gajendra's prayers, there's a lot of glorification. He's describing the all-powerful nature of the Supreme Lord and so many different things, just in this one pair of verses we've seen. And then there's a request. The prayer generally means that there's some request. That's kind of the definition of prayer if you look up in dictionary. So those 3 elements are almost always there. And we find it also in our Tulsi song, which is actually a prayer. And what's the first word? Namo, Namo, right? Offering obeisances. And then she glorifies it. Those who take shelter of you have their wishes fulfilled, right? So there's glorification. She's very powerful and she's very spiritual. And then there's several verses of requests. I want to, please make me a resident of Vrindavan so I can always see the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. Please make me your maidservant, and like that. So we find the general principle here also in these prayers of Gajendra. I've read through all of them, just the translations, just to get an overview of what. And practically every verse, there's an obeisance. He's offering obeisances. Whereas oftentimes, like in Kunti's prayers, there's a certain verses that have them, beginning and end, but in the middle there's all kinds of other stuff. Anyway, so here in this pair of verses, he's glorifying the Lord. He has no material birth, activity's name. He comes in the form of a human being like Rāma and Kṛṣṇa to fulfill the purpose for which material world is created. Okay, what is that purpose? Now the purpose is actually twofold. The purpose is to provide a place for those living entities who are rebellious. There's got to be a place for them. We were once in the spiritual world, as Prabhupada explains in great detail, and we turned away from Krishna. Usually this vimukha cetasa means actually turning one's face. Mukha is a word for face, vimukha cetasa, and you turn your face or your consciousness away from Krishna and you get absorbed in the material world. That's there in that famous verse about the origin of fear, because as soon as you leave the spiritual world, you're in the world of duality, and fear is an integral part of it. If not at every moment, eventually there's tremendous fearful things going on. So, Bhayam, that's fear. Dvitiya abhinaveshatak sad ishad apetasya viparhiyo asmriti. These two lines give the description of the source of fear, and it's described as exactly what I just said. Vayam dvitiya. Dvitiya is the duality, this world of duality. Abhinaveshitak, you become absorbed in the dualities of this world. Good and bad, pleasurable, painful, and you're always thinking, how can I increase the pleasure and decrease the pain, like that. Ishad is the Lord. Apetasya means you turn away from. Viparhiyo smriti, and everything becomes backwards. Viparhi means reverse. Instead of you being the servant, you try to become the master. Instead of there being a world full of bliss and happiness, is a world full of misery and difficulty. So everything is an asmriti, and you forget. You forget your life in the spiritual world, and you forget even your previous material lives. It's a world of forgetfulness because you're remaining in illusion. So then the last 2 lines give the remedy in this wonderful verse from it's one of the 9 Yogendras in those verses, very often quoted. So tan mahayato, this whole situation is caused by Maya. by Krishna's external energy, which is serving him, to bewilder the conditioned living entities and give them this idea that they are the body and all of these things that we suffer in the material world. Until, we're ready to, we're fortunate enough to come in touch with Krishna or his representative and get the seed of bhakti planted in our heart by the mercy. And then we begin the long road back. It could take one lifetime or it could take more lifetimes, but it's... So then, Tanmayato Buddha, then this verse comes up again and again in the 11th canto. One has to be intelligent. Abhajetam, again, worships him, the Supreme Lord, who you turned away from eons ago. How? Bhakti Aikayesham, with one pointed devotion, pure devotion. Not, worshipping this God, that God, this God, that God. No, worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then, very important, Guru Devatatma, seeing one's Guru as also one's worshipable Lord. You see, Guru Devatatma. So that one verse is very rich. So here we find a very graphic and fascinating example of some living entity, Gajendra, who had been Indradyumna, a great devotee in previous life, and been cursed to become this. I forget what he did. Probably, offended a Vaishnava or offended a great sage. Anyway, because the devotee wouldn't curse him. And so he became this elephant. Not just any elephant. He's Gajendra. What does Gajendra mean? King of elephants. Gaja Indra. Indra in general can mean the king. And it's pronounced Gajendra. I was interested to see that Paneshri actually pronounced it, because we tend to fall into the Anglicization of the things. And there's no S sound in Sanskrit. Hare, it's not Hare, right? But the Gajendra, obviously Gajendra. Everyone says Gajendra. There it is, Gajendra. Now it's Gajendra. But that's no big deal. So here's Gajendra, who's been doing what he's been doing so long, going into the lake and enjoying with the female elephants and then coming out. But this time, there was a crocodile in there, who was inimical. And the crocodile grabbed him by the leg. Now, Gajendra is super powerful. The ordinary elephants are like one of the strongest animals, if not the strongest, at least on land. And Gajendra was the king of the elephants, so he was very powerful, but he was out of his element. That's described. So even though he's struggling for 1,000 years, the crocodile was very determined and wouldn't let him go, and so now he's at a crisis point. So finally he remembered from all of this pain and the suffering, he remembered this prayer that he learned when he was Indradyumna. So that's what he's uttering here. So he's now a glorifying man, remembering how he comes as like Lord Rāma, Lord Kṛṣṇa, by his original internal potency, and probably refers in the purport to the famous verse in the 4th chapter of the Gita. We know that Krishna describes in a few verses why and when he comes to personally, right? So the famous verse that every Indian learns as childhood, Yada yada hi dharmasya, as a child. Yes, so that's very wonderful. I didn't ever learn anything like that when I was a child. Yada yada hi dharmasya glani bhavati bharata abhyutanam dharmasya tadatmanam sajamyaham. Did you learn it too? Yeah. Yeah, everyone learns. Every Indian learns. It's a wonderful thing. So what's that? That's the one of two verses where he said, whenever and whenever, right? Whenever dharma, there's dharma saglani. There's discrepancies in the practice of dharma. Just look at this world, except for the Hare Kṛṣṇa movement. So many religions, so much, practices that have no God in them, but they're kind of a dharma because you're trying to go somewhere and improve your life, or whatever, And it's all dharma saglani. There's all kinds of, you're not really making progress back to Godhead and getting, toward liberation and reinstatement in your loving relation with God, generally. So there's all kinds of dharma saglani. So he comes when they're yadayadahi dharma saglani bhavati bharat abhyutanam dharmasa, and with those dharma saglani, there's all kinds of adharma that's present. You see, and adharma is very damaging. It's a kind of a disease of the human society, It's when, without religion is just animal society. That famous verse is worth memorizing from the Hitopadesh. Even the word Hitopadesh is such a wonderful description of a book. A book of instructions for the benefit of humanity. Hita means benefit, and Upadesh is, we know, instruction, as in nectar of instruction. So, this one verse that I've ever heard quoted from there, and probably quoted sometimes, it says, Ahara nidra bhayamaitanangsha samanya metan pashabhina ranam dharmo hitesham adhiko vishesho dharme nahina pashabhi samana. It's very easy to understand this verse when you take it. So we share four things with the animals. Who can say what they are? Bhakti Chad. Sleeping is one. How about the other three? Okay, eating, you're right. And
mating, defending, and eating.
Very good, Vijay. Thank you. Eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Okay. So that's not a mystery if you think about it. Yeah, you know. Okay. So we share those. So then, what's the difference? What's the difference between us and the animals? Unfortunately, oftentimes there isn't any difference. But this, if there is going to be a difference, this is the difference. Dharmo hitesham adhiko vishe. Adhika means the best, or the best thing. Dharmo hitesham adhiko vishesha. The distinction has to be dharma. You see, and dharma nahina, without dharma, pashabhi samana. We're just like animals. Human life is no dvipara pashu. Did anyone ever remember that little phrase? Two-legged animals. We got the other two legs up here. It became hands. A big deal. You know, that doesn't make us any much better. So, what is that dharma? The dharma is the key, right? At the beginning of this book, Bhagavatam, the second verse, dharma is mentioned in a very important way. Who can say how? Beginning of the verse, 1:1-2. Come on. Yeah, dharma kaitava. How does it say? Yeah. So here in this Bhagavatam, cheating dharma is kicked out, not just ignored or de-emphasized, but kicked far away. Dharma projita, ujita. Ujita means to throw far. Projita means to really throw it out as far as you can. You know, and kaitava dharma, cheating dharma. There's something called, I hope I don't get bombed for this, maybe they're listening in, but what is it called? Prosperity theology? You know? The whole thing is, here's how you can become rich, like me. You know, the guy who's preaching. You have to have some good preaching skills. You don't have to believe in God, you just have to have some preaching skills. And the whole thing is that if you invest, you know, by sending in donations, then that's, you know, it will fructify. And it worked for me. Look, I have 2 airplanes, and I have this, and I have 4 yachts, and like that. It's a total cheating religion, and it's very popular. They fill big stadiums of the, you know, and people come and I've seen, you know, on YouTube I was exploring something, and they showed, and people looked like they're ecstatic. Oh yeah. You know, because they're really hopeful. They're very emotional. This is going to work. You know? Anyway, that's Kaitava Dharma, and so is Mayavad. Prabhupada, you know, if you read the first canto, you know, he wrote that all in India. So much is there, you know, against the Mayavadis, and it's true that was a main battle, and it's an ongoing battle. That the ultimate reality is impersonal. God is impersonal. You don't have to, you know, 934, Radha Kṛṣṇa, Dr. Radha Kṛṣṇa, his commentary in his Gita. It's not that there's a person Krishna that we have to surrender, but it's the unborn, eternal within Krishna. There's no inside and outside of Krishna. Krishna is solid spirit. His name, his form, his qualities, his body. It's not material. It's completely spiritual. So, that distinction, you know, and Prabhupada quotes 2 lines from the Bhagavad Gita here. Janma karma chame divyam. Now this verse is very important, and we're adjusting the translation. Hopefully I can get it through the authorities. If you look at the translation to this verse, which I can, because I could just push this, and we have One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. That's the translation that Prabhupada gave, and that's a translation we've had forever. But sometimes Prabhupada would leave a word out, and sometimes it's an important word in his translation. Like in, I think it's 1854, Brahmabhuta Prasanatma Nashochi in the Kangshati, often quoted verse, right? If one comes up to the Brahmabhuta platform, then Prasanatma means you become joyful. Your natural joy will be there. And you don't lament and you don't hanker for anything material. You see everybody equally as a spirit soul, and in that state, you attain bhakti to me. That's the general. But that prasanatma, which Prabhupada would often describe, it's right in the purport. One becomes fully joyful. That had been omitted when he dictated it was restored in 1983. Okay? So there's an important word in this verse that didn't make it into the translation, and that is tattvataha. In truth. Krishna is known, as dancing with the gopis. Yeah, I know Krishna, and oh, there's a Bhagavad Gita, a Saptaha, let me go, because then I'll hear about the rasa dance. The model for the Saptaha is obviously this, what we're hearing here. Parikat sitting for 7 days. Sapta means 7. But he didn't sleep, eat, or drink anything for 7 days, okay? Are you ready to do that? You'll hear the whole Bhagavatam, 18,000 verses. No. We have a 7-day program, and from 9 to 3, and then we adjourn for lunch, or whatever. And we're hearing the essence of the Bhagavatam, the rasa dance. No. Prabhupada would speak. You'll find that in the first canto again, because he's coming from India. So the point is that, yes, Krishna's janma and karma, his birth, janmashtami, and karma means his leela, to me divyam, my divine, transcendental birth and activities, one who understands that in truth, then, chakvadeham punajama, when he gives up the body, he doesn't take another birth in this material world, but comes to me. That's Krishna consciousness. So that tattvata is key, and it appears in several other verses. Manushyanam sahasreshu kastidyaradi tattvataha. Only very few people strive for siddhi, and a few of those know me in truth. And it appears twice in this key verse, bhaktyamam abhijanati yavanyaschasmi tattvataha. Tato man tattvato gyama vishate tadanantaram. Only by bhakti can I be known in truth, because Krishna reserves the right of not revealing himself to those who worship him in impersonal, just a Brahman like that, you see. Or they worship him for some material thing, so there's no bhakti, you see. So he's not going to reveal himself. So anyway, Prabhupada quotes this verse in here, meaning that the divine, dhamma karma chamedivim, he does not become a product of matter. All his birth, his activities, everything about him is divine. And then avajanandi mamudha manushim tanamashratam. When I appear as a human being, the mudas, the fools, they deride me. They deride me, think that it can't be God because he's a human being, whatever. So that's in the 9th chapter. Therefore, when Krishna comes, and Prabhupada keeps saying Rāma or Kṛṣṇa, he's, in this particular purport, he said Rama is included, descends to act for our benefit, we should not consider him an ordinary human being. So this is like a central part of this is part of the opening the door to bhakti, is that you understand that yes, Krishna can appear on this world as a human being, but he doesn't act like as a human being, and we shouldn't regard him as such. We should regard him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, performing a most merciful act of appearing in this world. He doesn't have to come here, but he comes because he feels compassion, right? He feels empathy for us who are his children. We rebelled and we did so many nasty things. We became demons and we were punished and went to animals. But still, we need help. And so he comes personally, or he sends his emissary, speaks the Bhagavad Gita. And Lord Chaitanya so beautifully describes this as the super soul who is always with us, trying to give us good instruction, but we're not listening because we're absorbed in trying to enjoy the fruits of sense gratification. 2 birds in a tree. But the super soul is always there, giving us remembrance. The birds, what do they know? You know, a little bird was broken out of the egg. What to do? Oh, the mother comes feeding the worm, you know. But she has to learn how to fly really soon. How is she going to do that? That's coming from instinct, from the super soul, you know, all that you have to do to survive in that particular lifetime. So Krishna is there doing that, but there's also a certain percentage of human beings who would be receptive to the teachings of Krishna consciousness. So they have to be manifest also. And so he inspires and empowers acharyas to act as his transparent via media, as Prabhupada would say. Really transparent media, like a medium, in order to be a channel. And that's what the acharya is. And of course, he leaves, you know, his books like the Bhagavatam and other things for our benefit. So we should not consider them to be ordinary human beings, obviously. He does on the basis of his spirit, Sambhavami Atmamaya, that's also in the 4th chapter. That's also was left out of the translation. It's been in there for about 5 years. I appear by my internal potency, as opposed to us, who are forced to appear. You know, we don't have a choice as karma, you know, and we're forced to appear as human beings or lower human beings or even animals. Krishna is not forced to appear. Everything he does is by his will. And so he comes by the spiritual entity, Atma Maya. Okay. So material names and forms are contaminated, but spiritual name and spiritual form are transcendental. Now this practical, you know, instruction that we tend to forget, and that is that when we're chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa, either in Sankirtan or in Japa. Now it's also nice to remember from the 10th chapter, Yajnanam Japa Yagyosmi. Of sacrifices I am Japa. Now, of course, we also know that in this age, the Sankirtan Yajna is the supreme dharma, is the only way. Hare Nama Kevalam. But in the Bhagavad Gita, that japa is so important. It's a meditation. So it's important to remember. I was just mentioning to Daniel this morning. In Bhakti Siddhanta Vaibhava, people know what that book is? That's the book of a biography of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati written by Bhakti Vikas Swami. And I'm telling you, you know, when those who were here when Mahatattva was now Bhaktinanda Tirtha Swami was the president, I forget, it was 2005, 2006 I think he came. But he was helping him write. He would go through it. He had some function, and so he would sometimes read parts of it to us. It's a huge book. It's 2 big volumes, you know. And it's divided up into little sections. You know, here's his life, and here's the verses that he would quote in chapters and things like that. So one of the sections talks about the importance of glorifying the holy name. Not just by chanting the holy name, but also like, you know, chanting Shikshastika, Namastaka, or so many verses in the Bhagavatam that glorify the holy name. And it's very nice to understand, because based on that understanding, Abhinatvan Nama Namino, this is the last line of a verse. Nama Chintamani Krishna's Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha Purnak Shuddho Nitya Mukto Abhinatvan Nama Namino. It's worth memorizing this verse because we do so much chanting. So for Nama Chintamani, Krishna's Chintamani it's a philosopher's stone, you know, it's the famous touchstone. You touch it to something and it turns gold, right? That's the philosopher's stone. So this holy name is a philosopher's stone, meaning that it transforms your consciousness. If you just chant it or hear it, you know, and the whole thing is attention. Everything depends on attention, full attention. You're transformed. Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha, the very form of these rasas, of the relationships with Krishna, can be realized through the holy name. Purnak, it is a complete process of elevation, of yoga. Don't think that you have to do, of course we have so many processes, but the central process is chanting, and Haridas Thakur saw that it's complete process. He became fully, honored by Lord Chaitanya, and Advaita Acharya is the most advanced Vaishnava. So Purnak, Shuddho, completely pure, purifying, Nitya Mukta, always liberated, free from the modes of nature. Why? Or the last line is the punchline. Abhinatvan nama namino. What does that mean, Avirel? Abhinatvan nama namino. Not the form, the name and the named. Yeah, the name and the name. Namino, nama namino. Yes, Abhinatvan, there's no difference, which is like totally inconceivable. But that's part of our faith. And so when you sit down to chant or you're in kirtan, your association with the name will be perfected and enhanced the more that you can hear it. Just hear it. In other words, the mind has to be quieted and you just hear that sound. And then you're actually associating with Krishna and all the purification and the attraction and all that and everything is going on with full force. So that's an important, and that's property. Material names and forms are contaminated. When you hear the name, I'm not going to say the name of our glorious leader in this materially in this country, but that name, it also carries so many things. You can remember what he did, and who he is, and whatever. I'm not going to get into details. In other words, material names also will affect you, and forms. So we are trying to turn our attention from material names and forms to spiritual names and forms. And we have this great benediction of the Hare Kṛṣṇa mantra, the Maha Mantra. Even without much attention, it has a tremendous effect. And if you're advancing, then you read the CC and you see what real advancement is like. When the kirtan starts, immediately go to Lord Chaitanya and the incarnations, they go into ecstasy. But so do the devotees. The tears are flowing and they're dancing for hours, not even noticing, and all these different things. Because they're actually experiencing Krishna's presence and his potencies through the holy name. So we should always remember that. And it's worth glorifying the holy name. I have so many literatures, if you're interested, Namashtaka by Rupa Goswami. 8 verses glorifying the holy name. I'll share the first one. Let's see if I can remember it now. I think Jayati. No, this is another one. Nikala Shrudimali Ratnamala Dudinirajata Pada Punkajanta I Mukta Kalayadu Pasyamanam Paditastram Harinama Sangshayami. Is anyone familiar with that verse? Nikala Shruti Mauli Ratnamala. So it is. So the series of jewels, which are the crown jewels of the Vedas, which are the Upanishads. Okay, that's how it's described. All of them. Nikala Shruti Mali Ratnamala Duty, the effulgence emanating from those jewels. Duty, Nirajita Pada Pankajanta. Nirajita is what you see whenever you do the arti. This is Nirajita, especially with the lamp. You see, Nirajita. What are they worshiping? The effulgence of those jewels, and all the Upanishads. They're like the jewels of the Vedas. They were worshiping. What are they worshiping? The tips of the toes of the lotus feet of the holy name. Nirajita Pada Pankajanta. It's Krishna, right? It's not Pada Pankajanta. Mukta Kalai Rupasyamanam. It's worshipped especially by the liberated souls, the devotees. Paditastram Hadinama Sangshya. Oh Hadinam, I take complete shelter of you. That's the first verse. And the final verse, there's a wonderful devotee who's the son of someone who used to live nearby here, Prahlada Priya. And his son is now named, he got initiation from Vaisheshika, Madhuri Pura. Madhuri Pura, which is the flood of sweetness. And it's part of the last verse of this Namashtaka. Narada Vino, and it has a beat. If you're interested, I can show you. Amazing. Narada Vino Jivana Sadho Manir Yasamadhuri Pura Tvam Krishna Nama Kamam Spadameva Saneva Sena Sada. Now here's a prayer for you. You can pray directly to the holy name. Narada Vina Ujivana. Now Narada we know. Vina we know is instrument, you see. Ujivana means the life and soul or the inspiration. The inspiration for the Veena of Narada, or holy name, you were the inspiration for Narada to play that Veena. Narada Vina Jivana. Sudhormi means waves of nectar. Niryasa Madhuri Pura. Niryasa means thick. And Madhuripura means a flood of sweetness. You're a flood of sweet nectar, which is niryasamad, which is the essence of sweetness. Niryasamadipura. Tvam Krishna nama kamam. Now the word kama we know means lust, but the word kamam means if you please. Please. Tvam Krishna, oh holy name, Tvam Krishna nama kamam. If you like, if you please. Tvam Krishna nama kamam spudame rasane rasena sada. Always appear on my tongue with great relish. May I always continue relishing you. And you can see how our great acharyas like the Goswamis and Lord Chaitanya showed the way, and chanting the holy name and being completely satisfied for hours, not eating, not sleeping, not doing anything, because they're relishing the greatest sweet pleasure of association with Krishna and dancing on his tongue, dancing, and dancing physically. So that's our shining lights, our examples that we have, and the whole root of it is that Krishna is His holy name. He's there fully and manifest in His holy name. It's completely inconceivable. But with that, at least faith that is true, the more we listen, and the more that we're submissive in hearing the holy name and chant with feeling and intention, the more we'll experience that. And the purification, which is evidenced by our decreasing taste for material pleasures, and our increasing taste for hearing about it and chanting and serving and worshiping and bowing down and praying to Krishna and serving in all kinds of ways. That's the vairagya. When we learn about what real dharma is, back to dharma, which is such a key phrase. Without that, we're animals. So those famous verses, which I encourage you to study and learn if you can memorize them. There's about, I think, 16, 17 verses. In the second chapter, first canto, beginning with text 6, Savai Pung Sang Paro Dharmo. What is the supreme dharma by which the living being can become completely enlivened and pleased? This is the central question of the sages of Naimisharanya, and Sutta Goswami is answering here. And Paro Dharma Yato Bhakti Radhokshaje is bhakti, or devotional service, to the transcendent Lord. He doesn't say Krishna at that point, Adhokshaja. This name for Krishna is very interesting. Adha Aksha Ja. Ja means born, and Aksha is the eyes, or all the senses. So that knowledge, that is a result of the ascending form of knowledge, right? Of using our eyes and ears and our intelligence to look at this world, and then we come up with a thesis. That's the ascending knowledge, which won't get us back to guided. So Krishna is adhokshaja, means he pushes all that knowledge down. Meaning he's transcendental. He's transcendental to the reach of our mundane senses, mind, intelligence. You see, so you have to have faith to worship him. So that's what this is about. Which engenders, which results in devotional service for the transcendent Lord. But there's two caveats. It has to be a haituki. Who can say what a haituki means? Causeless, yeah. Causeless or without, sometimes it's without motive, you see. But really, there is always a motive, and there's always a cause. But no material cause, right? The spiritual cause, spiritual motive. We want to become, without that motive, then where's your lalium? Where's your greed for it? You see? So anyway, without any material motive and apradiyata, uninterrupted. Yeah. So constant and on the basis of devotion, not on the basis of, I'll do this and I'll get something for it. That's for the demigods. Forget that. So such bhakti, yeyatma suprasidati, will completely please the soul. And the remainder of the verses describe how one can develop those. And at one point it's described one has to develop the sword of remembrance, you see. But actually what I wanted to describe is that the very next verse describes this essential way in which you can understand if you're advancing. Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janayat Yashu Vairagyam Jnanam Charyata Hoitukam. Here's that word ahoitukam, which means in this case automatically. So he says that's such. Now he reveals who is that Adhokshaja? It's Vasudeva. So it doesn't take long to find out who he's talking about. So Vasudeva Bhagavati, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, named Vasudeva, which is the name for Krishna. Now, is Vasudeva as opposed to Vasudeva. Vasudeva is his father. That's why he's known as Vasudeva, you see? Then that becomes one. So, Bhakti Yoga Prayojada Janayati Ashu quickly generates vairagya, detachment from material affection or material attachment, accompanied by jnana or knowledge. Those two things are essential to have. And actually one helps support the other. I always give this example, those who are here now that Madhusudan has passed. But he had perfected the art of making sweet rice over the years. And I think he would always make it one day a year on Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja celebration, right after Janmashtami. So it's generally a half-day fast and everything. So there's a big feast in the afternoon, and all the Prabhupada disciples and everyone gets in there and cooks, and there's a special feast. So he would come out, and it was it's like a dessert. So he would come out near the end of the feast, and all the buckets were ready, and the devotees would be ready to serve out. So here's vairagya, how jnana can produce vairagya. And devotees were thinking, oh, I remember that sweet rice from last year. That was pretty good, Wow, strawberry sweet rice or whatever. Yeah, Madhusudan, yeah. So they're all ready to serve out, and Madhusudan runs in from the kitchen. Said, oh, wait, I'm so sorry. Oh my God. I put salt in instead of sugar. Now, as soon as you know that, the taste for this particular sweet rice is gone, right? So I don't want to. So knowledge produces vairagya. So when we understand what it means to be a conditioned soul, to just go along in your ordinary way, then you're going to suffer like anything. And we have already, some taste of suffering. So that knowledge of the Shastras should be an inducement to take up bhakti so that you can get out of and become detached. Because what's keeping us coming back? Your latent desires. You enjoy something, it plants the desire seed, and in your subtle body, it is, it's scientific. Bring you back again and again and again. And because you'd have no idea what religion or proper things is, you do some sinful activity, you lose the human form of life. We've been doing that for millions of births. So now, if we just, even if you don't do anything else, just whatever we've done so far will give us back a human birth. But we shouldn't be satisfied just with that. We want to go back to God in this lifetime. We want to become pure devotees. And determination, that theme that we had for a few. So determination. So getting up early, chanting, coming the samsara prayers. The very first line, our heart should be flooded with gratitude for Prabhupada and our own spiritual master. Samsara dava naradidha loka tranaya. Tranaya means to deliver. So everybody in this material world is burning in this forest fire of birth, death, old age, and disease. Samsara, dava, nava, vida is suffering. Tranaya. But he acts like a cloud, right? There's a forest fire, and they didn't have any rain, up in L.A. We haven't had much here either, but anyway, hopefully we don't get that. And everything was dried out, and then the spark comes or whatever, and boom, wildfires destroy everything. So imagine being in the middle of that. You don't have to imagine. This material world is like that. Birth, old age, disease, and death, threefold miseries. Oh my God. So, but to be delivered, how grateful we should be. Someone comes and like a cloud of mercy pours down what? These books, the holy name, his own association, prasadam, the whole society. This is all from, our guru. And our personal guru now, I think I'm the only Prabhupada disciple here in the room. That's the same feeling should be there, because they're just carrying forward Prabhupada's. To be a guru in ISKCON means you're carrying forward Prabhupada's instructions and his knowledge and so forth. So, what is it? Samsara Dhamlita Loka Tranaya Karunya Ghanaganat, from like a thick cloud full of the mercy. Karunya Ghanaganat Praptasya Kalyanu Gunarnavasya. And just like, so it's like a cloud, and he's like an ocean full of all good qualities. And Vande Guru, here's the Vande, Vandanam, Vande Guru Sri Charanarabhin. So that's the importance of Mangal Arti and Guru Vashtaka. As I mentioned, I don't know if everyone is aware of it, there's a ninth verse. It's written as an Ashtaka by Vishwanath Chakravarti. And the 9th verse, which I forget, you probably know the Sanskrit, but the meaning is, someone who rises up early in the morning and attends Mangalarti and sings this song is sure to go back to Godhead. That should be an inducement to come to Mangalarti. Right? Anyway, I don't want to get too far afield here. But Gajendra is going to offer his obeisance every verse. He's offering, if not physically, he can't do it. He's in the water and everything. But after the whole, I made a mistake. I thought he was offering and offering the lotus now, but at the end of it is when he picks up the lotus, and Narayan comes, and the cuts off the whole mouth of the crocodile and saves Gajendra. But the crocodile is also saved. He's also benefited. So that we're going to be reading his prayers. And there's one especially that caught my attention. I memorized it years ago. Ekantino yasana kantanatam vanchanti evai bhagavat prapanna atyadbhutam tat charitam sumangalam gayanta ananda samugdhamagna. Ekantino, one is a pure devotee. Ekant is free of material desire. Yasana kanchanartam, doesn't want anything else from the Lord. Kanchanartam. Ekantino yasana kanchanartam vanchanti evai bhagavat prapanna, who is surrendered unto the Supreme Lord. When such a person, atyadbhutam, you know what ati is always very, right? Adbhutam means wonderful. His very wonderful, what? Leela of Krishna. Tat charitam sumangalam, which are extremely auspicious. Gayanta sings of them. What happens? Ananda samudramagna, becomes drowned in an ocean of bliss. So that twofold cultivation of trying to be pure and give up, in artas and advance in devotional service, get a taste for the hearing and chanting, and then the Bhagavatam is there, the prayers, so many verses, and Krishna book, everything. You could be crying all day in ecstasy just by remembering and chanting and hearing, and that's the whole idea. Whatever service we do, it should be accompanied by Hare Kṛṣṇa, or some remembrance like that. So that prayer was something I remembered, and I try to remember that when I memorize verses. What's not to like, And then you discover, in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, look, here's this verse about Krishna crawling toward Mother Yashoda. He says, Kwanatakanakakinkani kalapam smitamukamundra nasikāgamuktam kadadatanabhanita pindamangre tanayamavekshan nanandananda patni. Now, before I tell you the translation to this verse, I'm going to introduce you to a word. So you probably heard it before, but we should integrate it into ISKCON. Ecstasise, not exercise, ecstasise. It's not in the modern dictionary, but it's in the Oxford English Dictionary. It means to become ecstatic, or to put someone else into ecstasy. So that's this nananda. Nananda is a word here that means exercise. And who becomes exercised? Nanda Patni. Who's Nanda Patni? Yes, Yashoda. So Kvanita Kanaka Kinkani. Kvanita means the sound of the bells of his waist bells. The little baby Krishna is crawling toward his mother. He's wearing two things: the waist bells and a bell and a pearl affixed to his nose. That's all he's got on. So he's crawling. Kvanata Kanaka Kinkani Kalapam. So all these waist bells, golden waist bells around his waist, are tinkling very sweetly. That's Kvanata Kanaka, is golden. Kinkani Kalapam. Smita Mukham, he's smiling. A little child smiling at his mother. You could imagine Krishna's smile. Smita Mukham Ujjala Nasika Gramuktam, and he's got this effulgent pearl affixed to his ear right there, to his eye, to his nose, sorry. Muktam. And in his hand, Kara Dvita Navanita Pindam. Who can figure that out? Navanita, fresh butter. Pindam, a ball. So he's holding a fresh ball of butter in his hand. He's crawling toward his mother, smiling, and his bells are tinkling sweetly. So what's the effect on Mother Yashoda? You can imagine. Tanayam Aveksha, she sees Aveksha, Nanda Patni. Nanda Patni becomes ecstatized. So that's one little verse in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. But if you memorize, you take the trouble and you chant it 10 times, I guarantee you'll feel very nice, very blissful. So that's what you read the Chaitanya Charitamrita. That's what's going on all the time. Lord Chaitanya is dancing and chanting Hare Krishna. Everybody's joining him and going to ecstasy, or he's meeting with Ramananda Roy, and he's hearing Ramananda Roy and Srup Damodar chant wonderful things, and he's going. So that's our life, and you don't need anything. You know, you could, the six Goswamis had as austere as you could possibly be. You know, they didn't have any place of residence. They lived under a tree. No, but they lived under a different tree each night. They didn't even have their own tree. And where would they get their food? They would beg a little of this and a little of that. And clothes, whatever they could find. But they were the most blissful people in the world. Happy. Because all the time they're thinking of writing these things, sharing them, and relishing them, and chanting Hare Krishna. So that's our legacy. We should try to do that. And then if we are really tasting it, then when we go out and preach, people will sense that and they'll feel we want to give them this treasure, and they'll be receptive. Which they are to some degree already, because we have such wonderful preachers. Okay, I went way over time. Oh my God, please forgive me. But, all right, Vijay, you're on. The others can leave. Okay, wait a minute. We have one local question here by Veera Chandra. Prabhu.
Yes, I can wait, Prabhu.
Okay.
Oh, thank you so much. So sweet. I have two really questions, but I don't know. First one, it's depend. This all like touched me so that when you told about that Krishna and his name is identical, that is no difference, and try to like chant this
with that understanding,
conscious that is understanding, yeah. And my question is, this like devotees know about it.
What is that?
Devotees know about it.
Do they know that?
No, they know about it.
No, you're saying know about it?
Yeah, it is known. But when we chant so many
forgotten.
different things that and we cannot concentrate on it.
Yeah, that's why it's important to review these verses and really meditate on them, so that they become part of your consciousness. Yeah, it's difficult because the mind is so conditioned and some of its experience and full of so many thoughts and things. So conquering the mind in the senses it's there in every form of yoga, and it's true in our form of yoga. The difference is that we don't have to just grin and bear it and try to conquer the mind, but we have so many attractive things that can attract the mind, and the most attractive is the holy name. Krishna bhuva vachaka shabdo nashta nirvata vachakaha Tadar aikam param brahma Krishna etya vidiyate. This is a verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita describing what the two syllables Krishna mean. What they are. Krish is the all-attractive nature. That's the pulling. You say, Krishna, everything that's attractive about Krishna. You can go on and write long books about it. And then na is the bliss. Na it describes him, but it describes us also if we really relish Krishna, the name Krishna. So they put them together and you get Param Brahma. You get the Supreme Brahman, Krishna. So, knowing that, it can help us. It can help us to, when the mind is full of thoughts like that, then we drink in the holy name and just to think of nothing else, But also, the thing is to have prayerfulness. Prabhupada said, what does it mean? What does Hare Krishna mean? It means, oh, Krishna, oh, Rama, oh, Radha, please engage me in your service. So that we can try to have that thought also, and or see it. I remember there's Likata Japa, where you write the name. You really got to concentrate, to do that. So whatever it takes. And the main thing is if you minimize to nil those things which take your mind away from Krishna, then when it comes time to sit down for japa, if you're thinking of, you think maybe of this Leela of Krishna's or whatever, in other words, it would be Krishna thought. And the best thought is the holy name itself. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. That's the best I can do on it.
Thank you. Second question was is about verse from Bhagavad Gita. Is Janma karma chamedjivya. Almost maybe little the same. That also we heard about it many times, and what it means really. What you stressed this word tattva.
Tattvataha.
Yeah. What it means, like. What means to understand it? How I understand that this means that it will be liberation.
In other words, you understand, you know, you're reading Bhagavad Gita, and you understand that Krishna's birth is not just a wonderful birth of an attractive young boy. You know, in other words, there's no material conception surrounding Krishna's birth. It's Krishna's birth is all auspicious. You can read that in the 10th canto, the detail. And he's come specifically because the request of Mother Bhumi and Brahma prayed because the earth is in trouble, and he's coming to attract the devotees, protect the devotees, enliven them, and that's another verse. It's in the 5 chapters, I think, near the end of the Panchajaya, the Rasa Panchajaya. How does that go? I just forget exactly, but he's saying there, in order to enliven my devotees and perform my activities so that they have, you know, fresh remembrance of things to hear and chant about, that's one of the reasons I appear. That's an internal reason. That's, you know, and so to understand that, and karma, meaning his lila, and have no, you know, material conception of it. Don't try. This is the whole problem with the upper sampradayas, the sahajiyas, you know, is that they see. There was once this one lady who would come often here, and she was, you know, nice. She was listening to class, but then she had a comment in one class once. Well, my understanding is that Krishna came, you know, and they're models for our, you know, behavior. That's a dangerous conception, you know. In other words, yet he danced, you know, we had this dance in the middle, and that we can do that too. And I never saw her after that. Because I think she was looking for me to make a comment, but I don't think I said anything that really encouraged her. We should worship Krishna's, you know, pastimes and try to understand them as best as possible. But the last thing we should do is try to imitate them, which I think is what she was getting at. So that's all, you know, atattvataha. So learning in truth means following the Shastra and the Acharyas and their understanding of Krishna's Leela and how we should approach it. You know, Prabhupada says at the beginning of the Bhagavatam, don't immediately jump over to the 10th canto, you know. So that's part of it. And that tattvata word is so important, you know. And Prabhupada emphasizes it. Whenever, I did some research, whenever he quotes that verse, even in the introduction to the Gita, he emphasizes that tattvata, that one has to understand in truth. Otherwise, you know, you're not going to get the benefit. You get something, but it's not the full benefit. You know?
It also understands that this should be not theoretically. It should be like we should put it in our life.
Yeah, that is for real. In other words, it's not just a story. Yeah, that's another way. That's good experience.
Thank you.
All right, Vijay Krishna, you're on. Anyone can leave for breakfast if they want. Good luck. You probably have to wait till 9 o'clock. It's almost 9 o'clock now. Okay, go ahead, Vijay.
Yes, Dravida Prabhu, if I may ask of you, please give me a short answer because I am outside the temple and my phone, the battery of my phone is ending. So my question is, and I have no time to go back to the temple to charge my battery. My question is, you said during your class that without religion, human society is not different from animal society. So based on this, my question is, what would be your argument to substantiate such declaration? In other words, how would you explain that without religion, human society is not different from animal society? That is my question.
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, I didn't say that. I'm just quoting this verse from the Hitopadesh, which says that explicitly. Naimisha. Close the door because it's too noisy. So the point is, what really distinguishes us from the animals? Because we're alike in many ways. We all eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. We have maybe fancy means of doing that, but it's not essentially different from what they do. They all have ways of doing that, from the insects up to the bears. But so just to have a life of sense gratification, of so-called advanced sense gratification, probably give you're sleeping in the 23rd story of a fancy building in a nice room in a nice bedstead, and the dog is sleeping in a corner on the street somewhere. What's the difference? It's essentially there's no difference. It's just our illusion that this is much better, But that's what it means. If our life is centered on these four things and their corollaries, subtle sense gratification and everything is also part of it for human beings anyway, then our life doesn't materially or doesn't essentially differ from animalistic life. And you can see the result of it is that as time goes on, such a life is more desperate because you feel that all these things are being taken away. I enjoyed so much sex when I was 25, now I'm 84. Let me have an operation. It's ridiculous. But it's essentially holding on to the insignificant, fleeting pleasures, sense pleasures. Those who are still here. Yehi sangsparjaja bhoga dukkha yonaya hevate ajandabanta konteya nateshu ramite buddha. 5:22 in the Bhagavad Gita. Intelligent persons do not take part in the pleasures that are due to the touch of the senses with the sense objects. And the mind can be a sense too. That's one of the senses according to Krishna. Just watching the movie and not really doing anything, or reading the novel. It's the same thing. So why not? Such sense pleasures are the sources of all misery. And they have a beginning and an end. And so the intelligent or the wise do not take part in them. Well, okay, but we got to have some pleasure. Yes. So, what does it say? Vaya sparsheshu asaktatma vindityatmadiyat sukham sab brahma yoga yuktatma sukham akshayam ashnute. Sukham akshayam. They enjoy unbroken happiness because it's spiritual. If you get to the point where you're thinking of Krishna every day, serving Krishna every moment, when are you going to sleep? You're going to dream about that, and you'll be enjoying it at night too, 24 hours a day. It doesn't depend on your external circumstances. It's soul to soul. So isn't that a better aspiration? So that's what it means. We may be polished animals and enjoy such fancy restaurants and have sex in a nice bed and sleeping on a nice bed, But essentially it's not different. It's eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, and therefore it's animal life too. Dvipada pashu, two-legged animals, and the other hands used to be legs. So that's what the meaning is. And it's an important understanding that whatever pleasures you may find that aren't Krishna conscious are really ultimately animalistic. You may be reading about it or seeing some movie about it or something, but it's the same pleasure on a subtle level. It doesn't get you any closer back to Krishna. So that's the whole idea, Prabhu, within that verse. Okay?
Yes, Dravida Prabhu, if I may, has to be expected. Again, you made me speechless because of the wonderful quality of your answer. Thank you very much.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada.